figured I'd wear my Morley Law Cliff Burton shirt so we can grandfather Clifford Lee Burton into the bass coalition as well. So,
hey, before we dive too far into it, I want to ask you a quick question about Cliff. Yeah. Just off the top, man, just what were your initial thoughts of Cliff?
I think when I met Dave, so June 1983, we put Megadeth together that month. I went to Hollywood. I'd had my own bands since I was about 12. I've always owned rock bands and studied jazz band and all this stuff. Not really that I love jazz so much, but I just wanted to study it seemed like there were great bass players over there in that genre, so I did my studies. I did all that. By the time I got to Hollywood, 18 years old, just fresh out of high school, I was going to go to the Musicians Institute, to their BIT, Bass Institute program. I was registered, was going to go, and then me and Dave meet, and we started Megadeth instead, which is really what I wanted to do anyway, which is, start a metal group. But I think for Dave, coming out of Metallica, there was, once we announced the first lineup of me, Dave, Greg Handovit, Dijon Carruthers, I forgot if Laura Kane, who was kind of a singer Dave was working with, I forgot if he was kind of in the initial announcement of that. But yeah, certainly there was a lot of, okay, I wonder if, Mustaine's new bass player is as good as Cliff Burton. There were definitely these things. Because, coming, I think, probably after Steve Harris with Iron Maiden, Cliff in Metallica, because of Metallica just had this huge upswing, and again, this was on the West Coast, and Metallica at this point was in New York recording the Kill 'Em All album. And because of Lars's connections in Europe, there was a buzz about Metallica. So, they were starting to have a worldwide buzz, and certainly in California. And Cliff, for sure, that the band would relocate to San Francisco just to get the bass player in the band.
Right. That's crazy. No band would ever do that. No band would ever do that for one bass player.
Yeah, exactly. And unknown at that time, all the elements, but Lars had enough vision, that, hey, that's the guy. And look, Cliff looked different than the other guys we talked. I mean, it was jeans and t-shirts, but, Cliff was the early adapter of flannel. He wore a flannel, the bell bottoms. There was more of a Southern rock, thing that appealed to it more than just, bullet belts and straight leg jeans and high tops and kind of, the metal uniform of the day. So, so there for sure was. And, Dave, as we were writing songs, I was never expected to model anything. Well, Cliff would do this, or why don't you do this? Because this is what Cliff did, or there was never any of that. I think this was really a blank slate, a clean canvas for me to create my own voice, my own style. As the songs were being written, Dave was, like an orchestra composer, was good about, hey, let's have the bass play this part. We'll have the drums do this. And we talked about it. Everybody's going to be lead drums, lead bass, lead guitar, lead vocal. So it was great to walk into that, And then initially I was kind of playing with fingers a bit. I'd played both with fingers and pick growing up. There wasn't really any place for slapping and popping. That wasn't what we were doing.
Right.
But so I started with fingers, but as we started recording, and in order to really kind of cop the licks and play the parts, I found that the plectrum was better, and so I just went with that. And because it was about us creating a group sound, not just, they didn't move to get me in the band. So, I needed to adapt to what we were doing, which was cool, to start something together that everything we did was for the betterment of the brand and the band and for the overall vision of what we were doing.
So there's no hey, get a wah pedal, get a distortion pedal, any of that stuff?
No, not at all. There really was no direct comparison to that. And look, I understood how Cliff played, the arpeggios, like for Anesthesia, for instance. I understood that, those are things that I had studied actually quite a few years before, to kind of understand, to, how to construct solos and things like that. So I understood what he was doing. But I think more so with Megadeth, I think inside of our songs, what everybody was playing a solo. The songs were constructed in a way that it was all very aggressive, progressive, and that's why live we didn't need to do these big, long, extended solos. Like Van Halen did, or that was kind of the arena rock thing. Okay, now in order to give everybody a break, someone take a solo, and we didn't really have to do that because inside of our songs, like, what more do you need to hear? I mean, we're giving it all, everything we got into the songs,
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely moments where you're like, oh, there's David playing bass. And like you'll kind of come out of nowhere and hit a little doodly doodly, like one that I always went back to was like Tornado of Souls, like where you're just like, like out of nowhere, you just kind of hit a little hammer on, pull off, little crazy, almost like finger tapping or something,
Yeah, you take no prisoners for sure. And then look, in the beginning, there was obviously Bad Omen, My Last Words, Skull Beneath the Skin had a lot of that kind of stuff in it, So I think the songs themselves had enough clever parts in them that, like, why go off and have to now noodle for another 15 minutes so everybody can take a beer and a piss break? You know what I mean? It's like,
right.
We set it all in the song, and I think that kept the live set much more focused. It was about the songs. It was about the charisma of the band, the charisma that each member had. I think everybody really had a moment to shine.
The David Ellison Show.